everybody, it's Christy, your friendly digital technology librarian, and I'm here with you today with a very, very special video. We are doing part 2 of our top 25 best horror films to stream for free with the use of your Milan-Berlin library card. So that means today is our top 10. If you've been following us on Facebook or on the Milan-Berlin Library District webpage, you know part 1 included movies top 25 through 11, and there are a ton of really, really fantastic films in there. There's no video, but it is on a blog post, which I will, of course, link in the description below. There are tons of movies that are considered classics, films like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Sam Raimi's The First Evil Dead, but there are also a lot of really great global films like, say, The Troll Hunter, which is amazing and hilarious. There's also Rampant, which is a fantastic period piece zombie film. So if you're watching series on Netflix like The Kingdom, like not The Kingdom, just Kingdom, you definitely need to watch the movie. They're not related, but they have very, very similar themes. And films from really, really successful contemporary directors like Robert Eggers. The Lighthouse is part of that 25 through 11. But in any case, please do check that out. Some really great titles in that. But yes, now we are moving on to our very favorite top 10 titles that you can stream for free. And those films, of course, can be streamed on one of our 3 video services, which are, as always, CleveNet's Overdrive, Hoopla Digital, and Kanopy. So if you have a Milan-Berlin library card, you automatically have free access to these services. You can contact us if you have questions. And if you don't happen to have a Milan-Berlin library card, please check with your own library district, see what they have on offer. They probably have some services available to you that you may not know about, but they are for you for free with the use of library cards. Anyway, without any further ado, let's go ahead and get to the top 10 titles. Coming in at our number 10 spot is a film called A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night. Now, I like a good vampire movie. I really do. But after a while, a lot of times they get kind of predictable, I suppose. I'm not talking predictable, say, like Twilight. That's not what I mean. I just mean, you always will have a guess as to motivations, who is the vampire if you have to guess, what they are going to be doing next. Even the best of them sometimes have that sort of stereotypical tone to them. And this movie is so atypical. It's quietly creepy and moody as all get out. I mean, it's beautifully, beautifully done, and it's shot in such a way that it feels almost like a noir film. Now, it is in black and white. I sometimes have a tendency to side-eye contemporary movies that are filmed in black and white just because it's an easy way to make something feel like an art piece, but it actually lends so, so well to the melancholy that sort of permeates all of these scenes. Like the tragedy of these characters, because you do have your central vampire character. Now, she is totally unexpected. At least she was for me. There's nothing that immediately screams she's a movie vampire to me. And, she, of course, does have a story and a tale that she wants to tell, but she's progressively vengeful, I guess would be the best way to describe her, in that she does definitely set her sights on abusive men within her vicinity. And she's of course mysterious, like vampires tend to be, and alluring in her own way, but it's not, again, that kind of super stereotypical, alluring, sexy female vampire. She's really very, very appealing as a character. She's a killer, obviously, but you're still able to have empathy and sympathy for her. Now, the other central character of this film is not a vampire. He leads a very difficult life with a drug addicted father who is constantly getting him into trouble. I mean, he tries to be a good man. And you have these two very sort of sad figures that you want to understand more. And, like I said, it is creepy, it is scary, it's definitely a horror film, but there's so much more going on. And it really does leave you feeling like you've seen a full film with a full range of emotions rather than just, your typical, oh my goodness, that's scary kind of emotion. And I absolutely loved it. It is subtitled, it's Persian language, but I definitely feel like it translates well. You're not going to come into too many like culture blocks that you might find in other films. It's definitely worth the watch. So please do check out A Girl Who Walks Home Alone at Night. It's available on both Hoopla Digital and on Kanopy, so you have two services with which to watch it. So if you've used up your checkouts on one, you can probably check it out on the other. So that is our number 10 pick, A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night. Make sure you check it out. For number 9, I went with something that was, I think, a little more typically scary. And I chose the film Ringu, or Ring. Now, you may have seen the American adaptation of this movie, starring Naomi Watts, just called The Ring. Even if you haven't seen that film, you're probably pretty familiar with some of the imagery. Everyone is familiar of the very creepy girl crawling out of the well. This movie, Ringu, is a 1998 Japanese horror film that scared the heck out of me the first time I saw it. It really, really left me on edge. I mean, the images are absolutely terrifying that it gives you, because so much of it is just normal, that when you have those moments that are really scary, they are horrifying. And I also find like films that pull technology into the horror elements to be particularly effective, simply because technology is such a relevant thing to all of us. I mean, most of us have a television. Most of us have experienced staticky screens. Most of us know what some of these little triggers become triggers are. So anyway, this movie is a great combination of traditional folklore and that whole fear of and anxiety of technology. You combine those things and it just becomes massively effective. In Ringu, you're dealing with a rather savvy reporter who is desperate to find out the truth about what happened to her niece, who was supposedly murdered by this curse. Like, we have no idea if the curse is real or what's going on, but this curse is on some videotape that she watched. Videotape. I mean, it's a little bit dated simply because I'm sure there's some people who don't know what a videotape is at this point. But again, we still can all relate to things that you watch. Videos, now it would be, like a clip on YouTube or something. But in any case, her niece watched a cursed videotape and it ended up killing her, along with several of her young friends. Now, Rinko, the reporter, is investigating these occurrences alongside her ex-husband, who kind of has this sort of sixth sense ability. But as they're investigating, as they're, of course, watching these videotapes, they discover that the curse is actually continuing. It's morphing, and now it's attached itself to Rinko. So it becomes this kind of race against time to figure out if they can, you know, figure out how to break the curse before its effects end up killing Rinko as well. So, there's a sense of urgency in addition to all of the terror and fear that you're going through. So, it ends up keeping you on the edge of your seat kind of situation the entire run through. And like I said, there are just these moments where that image of that girl climbing out of that well just stay with you, and the sounds that are going on, it's the sound editing is so well done in this, in addition to having those creepy visuals going on. So if you're in the mood for something that is truly scary and does not have elements of humor, doesn't have like underlying romance, like you're just dealing with something that will absolutely scare you, please check out Ringu. It is subtitled, it's Japanese language, but again, totally worth the watch. Um, Especially if you've seen the American adaptation. I actually find this film so much more effective and very much more scary than that adaptation, because they push it further in some ways, and it really will get under your skin. So at number 9, Ringu, please check it out. It's excellent, and that is available to stream via Kanopy. Now, number 8 is an Irish film called The Canal that I actually had no knowledge of prior to putting together this list. I watched it a couple of weekends ago and was so creeped out after I watched it. I couldn't stop thinking about it. It really does stay with you. Some of the themes and some of the scenes just wouldn't leave my head. Now, it's one of those that is filled with twists and turns. And I love movies like that really do kind of keep you guessing, that really do, you know, go in directions that you didn't necessarily expect, and then turn again and then turn again from then. Um, Now, the Canal, it chronicles the lives of the members of this very small young family that consists of a husband and wife and their young son. Now, they move into what is rumored to be a haunted house. Why anyone moves into what is rumored to be a haunted house, I will never understand, but that's a pretty common theme in horror movies. But it still works. Stay with me. Now, not long after they move in, he starts having these recurring nightmares about his wife cheating on him. And this sort of kicks off this very apparent downward spiral for the husband. Now, for parts of the movie, you have no idea, is it a curse? Is he just going crazy? Is he just paranoid? Is he just uber jealous? What is going on? But as more and more of the movie passes, more and more about these people, it gets peeled back, and layer after layer is revealed. Now, as we are going along, his obsession with the idea that the wife is having an affair just grows and grows and grows. And it gets to the point where the resulting actions, you have no idea what caused them. You really don't. But it's definitely set up so you have no idea whether or not you are expected to believe in the curse, or you're just supposed to suspect the husband. And it just is very well done. And the young man who plays the husband, whose character's name is David, does such a good job. He has been in, I believe, like the original Hellboy movie, and he definitely is playing against type. He looks like a very nice guy, like, and he's absolutely the opposite of the characters I've seen him play before. And, the there are certain scenes and certain twists that will just leave you reeling. I mean, it's a really, really well done suspenseful horror movie, and it is very scary in parts, so I definitely enjoyed it as a horror film fan. So, if you get the chance to watch and you are looking for something that is suspenseful in addition to being scary, please do check out the Canal. It's available to stream or download on Hoopla as well as on Kanopy. So again, if you've used up your views on one, just check it out on the other. And with that, that's our number 8, the Canal. Number 7 is a beautifully done film called Let the Right One In. Now, Let the Right One In is, like I said, beautiful and strange. It's also terrifically gruesome in some parts, but it just has this feel to it. It definitely feels like an art house film, I will say that, but in the absolute best of ways. Now, it's one of those super stylish films that you could discuss with your film loving fans for hours on end, but it's still a horror movie. Like, it is absolutely a horror movie. Um, and you won't lose sight of that every time you start to feel like, oh, it's just a really beautiful film. Something really fantastically horrible happens. So you definitely do get that scary movie vibe to it. Now, there's so much to dissect about each and every scene of this movie. There's so much going on. Like, the behind the scenes people who put this together definitely had an eye to making something gorgeous. Uh, it's almost like watching a film studies class, but without like too much pretension. And I know that's a horrible way to sell the movie, but it really does feel like much more that you're watching than just a horror film, because it's lovely, but it's still entertaining for scary movie fans. So it's a combination of coming of age story, it's a young romance, it is a violent, violent vampire film, and it works. It really, really does work. I honestly can't say how much I love this movie. And it's really moving in parts. That's what is also kind of surprising, is how moving parts of this film are. So it follows this young boy. He's about 10 or 12, I think. His name is Oscar, and it sort of tracks his life, which is quite difficult. He's sweet, he's sensitive, and he is very often bullied by these terribly vicious kids in his town. Now, he ends up meeting and bonding with his new young neighbor, Eli, who is very mysterious. He doesn't know much about him, or much about her, but she's definitely not, your average girl from town. Anyway, as Oscar and Eli bond, we start seeing more and more of murder, more and more of these like horrific murders about town. And, nobody really knows what's going on or what's causing them. And they have no idea how close danger is to all of them. So like I said, you have these elements of horror and suspense going on, but then you also have this lovely little relationship going on with Oscar and Eli. And you wouldn't think it would be so effective and it would work so well, but it really, really does. Now, Let the Right One In is a Swedish language film, so it is subtitled. It was adapted into an English language film. I believe Chloe Grace Moretz was the Eli character in that. It's not a bad adaptation, but I 100% would say that the more effective film was the original that's done in Swedish. So please, please, please check this movie out. Even if you're not a big horror fan, this is a fantastic film to watch. Like I said, it's beautiful. Now, it is available on all three of our services, which are Overdrive, Hoopla, and Kanopy, and it is 100% worth it to check out. So that's our number 7, Let the Right One In. I hope you'll give it a watch. Number 6 is one of my favorite films from the last several years, and that is What We Do in the Shadows. Now, What We Do in the Shadows is definitely not a pure horror film. It is a horror comedy that comes from the minds of Jermaine Clement, who put together Flight of the Conchords, as well as Taika Waititi, who did Thor Ragnarok and Jojo Rabbit. And these two ridiculous minds together make the most extraordinary comedy about vampires you could ever possibly imagine. That said, there are still really fantastic, gruesome moments within this movie, like legit horror moments, but you're laughing all the way through at the same time. It's funnier than most pure comedies I've seen. It is also effectively scary in some parts. Um, it tells it's a mockumentary set up as a documentary crew follows this uh, quartet of vampires that live together in an apartment, and these guys are trying very hard to interact with contemporary society, sometimes not to great effect. um, they're all several hundred years old, and they have histories of their own. They have histories with one another. There's like the oldest one who's like really reputed to be sadistic. There's sort of this Victorian dandy. There's this young, he's like a couple hundred years old, cool one. And then there's the ancient crazy one that lives in the basement. I mean, the four of them are really fantastic as it is. But then circumstances happen where they create another brand new vampire who kind of helps bring them into the 21st century. Um, and it's really funny because while it's a comedy, it's also a logical one in many ways. Like, how would a vampire interact with the internet? What would they be looking for? Um, and it's just sensibly humorous in a lot of ways too. I mean, you do have, of course, the element of ridiculousness to it, but it's just one of those movies you watch and you have a great time. And there's like the wink wink nod nod to fans of horror movies, of course, which I love, in a comedy anyway. But there's also just a really solid storyline. It's genuinely a good script, like, and of course coming from these two guys it would be. So you've got a great solid script, fantastic humor, a phenomenal cast. I mean, really, really, truly phenomenal. I mean, it was popular enough to spawn its own little franchise. There's a TV series, and it's just a good solid movie. If you're looking for something that's both a little bit scary and very, very funny, you cannot do wrong with What We Do in the Shadows. It's excellent, and I can't recommend it enough. It's available both on Hoopla to stream or download, as well as to stream on Kanopy. So please, please, please check this one out. It is absolutely worth it. If you're a vampire movie fan, if you're a comedy fan, if you're a Taika Waititi fan, just make sure you watch it. Number 6, What We Do in the Shadows. Now, number 5 is one of those classics that I think everybody who loves film should watch. It's Night of the Living Dead from George Romero, the first iteration from the 1960s. This is a must-watch movie. I know there are plenty of people who are not zombie film fans, but that's not even the point. This is a movie that really has influenced so much of the horror genre since then that you can't not watch it. You absolutely must see it, just to see where horror films have come from, like where zombie movies in particular have come from. Now, this 1968 film was shot on, like, I think, was it even like $100,000 budget? Like, it was a very minuscule budget, and it ended up making like $12 million domestically. I mean, it was so popular, and that was in part due to all of the attention it got. It was slammed for being overly gory at the time, though for today's standards it's absolutely not like gratuitously gory. I mean, you can see any day slasher films that are way more bloody and way more, over the top. But the gore, the violence, the horror elements are so effective that even now, decades later, it is a scary movie. In part because, of course, the dubbed ghouls at the time, I don't think anyone really used the word zombie so much in film at the time. So these ghouls, as Romero called them, are really like effective monsters. Um, and like some of the behind the scenes tidbits of information, all of the ghouls were only recently dead uh, uh, corpses because they couldn't afford to do the special effects that would require um, like very long dead corpses to reanimate. So some of the scary elements were simply there because of practical reasons. Now, this movie that sort of launched all of these zombie films has like a very simple storyline. People are trying to escape these reanimated corpses that eat other people. They take shelter in what they all assume is an abandoned farmhouse, and they must survive the night against these monsters, these creatures. They also must survive the night from one another. And that sort of sets up a theme that has gone on and on and on in zombie movies and zombie TV series like The Walking Dead. I mean, what's more dangerous, these mindless creatures or the people you are surviving amongst? Like, that theme is still prevalent, that theme is still everywhere, that theme works for far more than just zombie movies, really. So, again, the relevance to this movie made in the 1960s is still there. um like I said, you do have that simple storyline of run, survive, run, hunker down, survive. And that's essentially your storyline in this movie. And, you know, it's still as good now as it was then. It certainly is as good now as it was when I watched it in the 90s. I would imagine it will still be relevant and it will still be scary and still awesome 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now. So, if you've never seen it, if you haven't seen it for a while, if you watched it a few months ago, please do make sure you check out Night of the Living Dead again. It's available on all three of our services as well: Overdrive, Hoopla, and Kanopy, so you can absolutely watch it at any time you want to. And you really, really should. So, again, number 5, George Romero's Night of the Living Dead, the 1968 version. Please do check it out. Now, number 4 is a creature feature and one of those movies that I will watch it absolutely anytime, and that is called The Host. Um, it's probably, next to Jaws and Alien, one of my favorite monster movies of all time. Um, it combines those thrills and chills that you get from a horror movie, because there's legit scary moments in this, like scary moments that will absolutely leave you leaning forward in your seat, like wondering what's going to happen, that will absolutely make you jump, things like that. You've got dark comedy and sometimes overt comedy going on as well. You have social commentary, you have a lot of action and adventure, and it makes for a fantastically exciting horror movie. Like, when I watch it, I'm genuinely smiling a lot of times, not because it's like a happy movie necessarily, but because I'm having such a good time. Now, it speaks to this wide audience, but it never really panders. It's never like, we're gonna be funny now, or it's it's just a well-crafted movie. Now, while it is fun to watch, it is legit scary in places, so it doesn't make it less of a horror movie either. It is honestly just a perfectly crafted film, and it is a perfectly crafted film from the mind of Bong Joon-ho, who is the director of Parasite, which just won the Oscar. Um, and as such, you sort of know in advance that you're going to get a movie with tons of layers, because that's just his MO for all of his films, whether he's focusing on things like um, socioeconomics or horror, or even things like, oh, let's see, I'm trying to think of some of his other films. Oh, Of a Very Devoted Mother. Every movie has layers that you peel away, scene by scene. So that's what you get with The Host, a movie that speaks to you as far as an action adventure goes, but also will speak to you as a horror film and as a comedy. Now, at its heart, this is a story about a family trying to rescue its younger members from a monster. Uh, it's not super complex at that point, but it does have a ton of heart to it. Like, you have that urgency. This is life or death, right? I mean, the youngest kid gets captured and taken away by this monster. So if they don't manage to get her back, she's gone, right? So you have that primary element to the story. But because it's Bong Joon-ho, like I said, lots of layers. You have messages about society at large as well as government forces, because that's just how he does his films. Um, he and those moments can get a little bit heavy at times. Like, you don't necessarily go into a horror movie looking for that or expecting that, but again, it doesn't take away from the enjoyment level. If you're somebody who doesn't want that, it's not going to suddenly like ruin the movie for you. um and it actually, to me, adds a lot of layers. Like, there's more motivation for the family. They are essentially abandoned by their government, so why should they follow these rules that have been put in place? I mean, it adds credence to their actions, and I personally really love that, that extra layer that's going on. Um, so, as mentioned, it is a film from Bong Joon Ho, so we are talking about a Korean language film. So again, it is subtitled, but it is, again, 100 times worth it. Like I mentioned, it's probably one of my top three horror monster movies of all time. Um, whether or not it's available on with your library card, it's just that good of a movie. So this one is available on all three services as well. Those would be Overdrive, Hoopla, and Kanopy. So you absolutely have to watch it. Again, number 4, The Host, on Overdrive, Hoopla, and Kanopy. Make sure you check it out. It's fantastic. So we are down to our top 3 films, and really you could probably do a toss up, and any of these movies would fit perfectly in any of these 3 top spots. But I had specific reasons for choosing the arrangement that I did. Number 3 is, for me, the film Hereditary. Now, Hereditary is one of those movies that I loved and hated at the same time. It's a great movie. It's well acted. I mean, Toni Collette is your lead. She plays this woman named Annie Graham who is potentially spiraling into madness due to some tragedies that hit her family, and then the revelation about some secrets about her ancestors. I mean, she's the crux of the film, and the responsibilities of that all fall on her performance, and she does such an incredible job. I mean, really, truly, she's been phenomenal in pretty much everything I've ever seen her in. She really, really, really does a great job with this. Now, this movie is provocative, it's disturbing, it is absolutely not for the faint of heart, and you will not forget some of the absolutely shocking moments that happen. Uh, Visually stunning moments. Like, I remember just sort of gaping at my screen when a couple of things happened, not even able to give more of a reaction than what. um, and I think that's part of what makes this movie so effective. It's just that shocking and surprising in so many parts. Um, I don't know that it's a movie that I would rewatch simply because it was so intensely surprising what went on. Um, but it is an excellent, well made, well crafted film, and well performed as well. So if you love that kind of movie, um, again, like the acting, it doesn't get better than this. Hereditary, it's available to stream on Kanopy. Definitely a must watch for horror film fans. Toni Collette fans would absolutely need to see this as well. Please do check it out. Number 3, Hereditary. Okay, so we are down to our top 2 horror movies. Now, these two for me, honestly, I probably could have flipped a coin and it could have gone either way. But in the end, I did choose this order. Number 2 is Robert Eggers' The Witch. Now, this is one of the best, most unsettling films I've seen in the last decade. I mean, really, truly, barring any thoughts about, whether or not you can stream it for free with your card or not, this is an exceptional film. Now, it is disturbing and distressing in a lot of parts. Um, it's the kind of scary that leaves your stomach feeling pretty awful for a while after watching the movie. And I think it works so well because of that. I mean, emotionally evocative films are always going to be, for me anyway, the most effective movies. And this one, like I said, I felt unsettled for days after the first time I watched it. It's the very last scene, like, echoes. It's so unforgettably eerie after, and that it comes after everything else that you've watched prior to. I mean, beautifully horrible would be one of the best ways I could describe this movie, because it is beautiful in so many ways. Like, the film, the cinematography itself is gorgeous, even though it's taking pictures of pretty horrific things. Now, when you add to that the fact that this is Eggers' very first feature film debut, I mean, it's crazy. I'm very curious to see where he goes. His more recent movie, The Lighthouse, was also fantastic. But it's hard to say with that one, simply because you had these two tour de force performances going on. So I'm wondering which direction his directing will take, even more so in the future. Now, basic storyline is this sort of exiled Puritan family moves to the edge of what is very clearly a very bad, very dangerous forest one of those forests that you look at and you go, no one should live near there because bad things are going to happen. And guess what? Bad things do happen. Now, the family's youngest son suddenly disappears, and rather than going, maybe it's because we live next to a horrible, horrible forest, they turn super stereotypically puritanical and start to um, believe that their eldest, who was watching him at the time, must be involved in his disappearance. She's probably practicing witchcraft because it's puritanical times and that's what happens. Um, and so they go from this unit to this fractured thing. And, that paranoia, that hysteria that we see in so many other stories that take place in that same era permeate all of these moments of this horror. So you have that paranoia and that hysteria surging underneath all of these scary scenes. Now, you know, it also works because it does have twists. It does have those turns that I mentioned before, really loving. And, there are a couple moments when I honestly turned to the person I was watching it with and I was like, what did we just watch? I mean, what just happened? And I love it. I absolutely love that feeling. It just makes everything so much more in the moment, the fact that it effectively does that to the audience. So if you're looking for a beautiful, horrible, and super scary film with these callbacks to other moments of history, you absolutely have to watch Eggers the Witch. It's available on Kanopy. It's going to be one of those movies that will absolutely stay with you for a while afterwards. So don't intend to do anything super fun right immediately after you watch it. It will absolutely stay with you. So 100% worth watching. The Witch, my number 2 pick. Okay, so my number 1 pick, like I mentioned, could very easily have been The Witch, but I ended up choosing the movie Train to Busan for my number 1 film because it's one of those movies that I can watch over and over again. It's a fantastically entertaining movie. Now, it blends this pulse pounding action with a fantastic cast. I mean, the acting in this is really, really solid. It has a surprisingly moving, emotional storyline. And all of that, along with some serious scares, jump scares, not just jump scares, just that sort of threat of imminent danger constantly with you. It just does not get better than Train to Busan as far as zombie movies go. I mean, not even just zombie movies, horror movies in general. It's definitely one of my favorites. Can't tell you, I can't recall a time I've had more fun watching a horror movie in the last several years. And I think that's why, for me, this takes the number 1 spot. It's a fun horror movie, again, that I can watch over and over again, that I introduce to people who also have a fun time. Like, that sort of sense of excitement of sharing something works so well with this. Now, some of my other favorite horror films are definitely hit or miss with people, or it's not a movie you necessarily like smile and enjoy together. But this one, Train to Busan, really truly is. Now, regardless of whether you're a horror fan or an action movie fan, you will be on the edge of your seat. You will be looking forward to the next scene. Everything is always moving forward. It feels like you're on that train. So, my number 1 pick, Train to Busan. So, as the storyline goes, a sudden zombie outbreak, because aren't they all sudden? It drives a father and daughter onto this train, which its destination is the seaport city in Korea called Busan, that's supposedly safe. Is it really? We don't know. Now, there are several other people on the train, of course, the passengers that were already on before them, and those include a pregnant couple, a heavily pregnant couple at that, a young high school baseball player, the girl that he likes, and the rest of his fellow teammates, and several other members. But those are some of the core people alongside that father and daughter that you're going to grow attached to and that you're going to follow as they hurtle towards their destination. Now, this movie goes by quickly. I mean, you feel like you're on a bullet train because it never stops. Once the action starts, it just keeps going. Now, that said, amidst these like constant pulse pounding action moments, you get little tiny scenes of very serious emotion, like very quiet scenes that you would potentially expect in a drama or in like romance isn't quite the right kind of film, but definitely in a dramatic movie, like revelations about how people feel and things that they wish they'd said before. And they're not necessarily death scenes or anything like that. It's just these little pockets of almost normal amidst, I don't know, a horde of zombies coming at you. And it doesn't feel disjointed, but it does add so much more to the movie itself. Like, it becomes more than just your stereotypical standard zombie film. It becomes something unexpected, I guess, at that point. Now, the further along the tracks they get, the more harrowing the experience, because more of the passengers we don't know grow infected. The infected are moving along forward in the train, as are our survivors. So every moment is fraught with danger. Every scene has a will who will survive and who won't element to it. And that forward momentum that I mentioned before, it's propelling the movie forward. Now, as I mentioned, the cast performances are exceptional, and that combined with the storyline really are at the heart of things what makes this such a fantastic zombie movie. But besides that, like, your technical aspects are really, really, A plus in this movie as well. Like, the zombie makeup is great because of course you're not dealing with like long dead creatures. Like, these people just turned, and the makeup and special effects are really, really fantastically effective in this. So you've got great technical elements, you've got fantastic performance elements, and everything just results in a zombie movie you're not going to forget anytime soon. And again, it's one that you want to share with people. It's one that you want others to watch with you or on their own. So, as mentioned, Train to Busan is of course a Korean language film, so it does have subtitles. If you watch no other movie on my list of top 10, I'm asking you, please, please, please do check out Train to Busan. It is fantastic. It's so much fun. And it is available on Hoopla Digital to stream or to download. Um, it's one of those movies that I try to get all of my friends to watch at least once. So I'm asking all my friends out there, please check it out if you've not seen it before. Train to Busan, fantastic, fantastic film. So with that, those were our top 10 movies free to stream with your Milan-Berlin library card. Now, of course, these are all my top 10s, but if you have your own recommendations of films that you have watched with your library card that you want to share, please, please, please comment and let other people know. Halloween is still several days away. We are, in fact, I believe, 11 days away from Halloween. So you've got plenty of nights to watch, and a weekend at least in between. So 100% I want to know what movies you want us to share. And And, you know, if you have other themes that you would like us to recommend in the future, of course, mention those as well. So, after all that, we have shown you the top 25 films, and we've just talked about our top 10. Did you agree? Are there some that we missed? Do you totally disagree with others? Have you watched some of these films before? Uh, Again, we want to hear from you. We love comments, so make sure you comment below and let us know. And with that, that is our top 25 films. I hope you had as much fun listening as I did putting these together. Um, we will, of course, be releasing our regular Film Rec Friday this coming Friday. And we have lots more exciting stuff planned in the future. If you have any recommendations for us, let us know those as well, besides film recommendations videos, of course. So, with that, everyone have a very happy Halloween and enjoy watching those horror movies. And we will see you next time. Bye.